Let me begin by asking Paul a question. In the book, you say in the book that you started writing the book with the view that money buys influence. And as the richest few percent of Americans have grown richer, thanks to the unequalizing forces like technical change, they bought themselves a political party. In other words, the rise of movement conservatism is a byproduct of rising inequality, but the thesis of the book seems to invert the dependent and independent variables. So what led you to change your approach?
All right, so let me restate this a little bit. The story of the last 30 years in America, what happened to us? A lot of the book is about how did we get here? It's been a terrible time in many ways for anyone who cares about where America's going. How did we get here? And there two things happened clearly. One was this incredible increase in inequality. So when people talk about a second Gilded Age, that's not hyperbole, that's not a metaphor. We really are, by the numbers, as in the book, we are fully back to the levels of inequality when Robert Barron's ruled America. The other thing that happened is that instead of the political process leaning against that, instead of our political system saying, well, gee, what can we do to get the wealth spread more widely? What can we do to ensure that ordinary people are participating in all of this? Instead, we've had a sharp movement to the right. We've had lower taxes on the rich, assault on the institutions that did something to mitigate inequality. So we've had an assault on the union movement, declining purchasing power at the minimum wage, lower tax rates for the rich, attempts to undermine Social Security and Medicare. So how did all that happen? And I started with the view that maybe something was causing America to become more unequal, and the increasing incomes of a small minority were buying them the political influence that led to this rightward political shift. Turns out that there may be something to that, but the rightward political shift began before a couple of things. The rightward political shift began before the economic changes. In effect, people who wanted more inequality, people who wanted to bring us back to the Gilded Age, became powerful figures in our political life, and then it happened. So you have the rise of Ronald Reagan as a political figure. Well, predates. You don't really start to see increased income inequality in the United States until shortly about the time Reagan reaches the White House, but Reagan had become a crucial political figure long before that. Also, the United States, our new Gilded Age is unique. There are a lot of advanced countries. They all face the same forces of globalization that we do. They all face the same technological changes. Nobody else has seen the explosion of wealth at the top combined with stagnation of middle-class living standards that we've seen in the US. How do we differ from these other countries? Well, our politics is very different. So the story that I ended up with is that, oh, and I should mention one more thing. Sorry, long answer to the question. I'm a baby boomer. Grew up in that middle-class society in the post-war. Where did that society come from? Did it gradually evolve? And the answer is no. Middle-class America was created in a very short period of time. Right up into the 1930s, you still had enormous inequality, enormous polarization. But between 1935 and 1945, there's something that the economic historians call the Great Compression. This narrowing of differences. The rich got less rich, workers got much better off. Tremendous creation of a middle-class society. And how did it happen? It was politics. It was FDR. It was Social Security and unemployment insurance and minimum wages and pro-union labor policies and the use of highly progressive taxation. And to some extent, the use of federal power during World War II to make us a more equal society. And that both the creation of middle-class America and its dissolution are largely political processes.
Well, in terms of the New Deal and FDR, what you have, as you say in the book, is that we literally did so to the rich. The rich became poorer in the 20 years after 1935, not only relatively but absolutely because of the rules that we made. And unions went up, that is, union organization went up by a factor of 6. And I was wondering, the New Deal, as you indicate, there was a crisis, there was a depression. It led the opportunity for change, but why was it that they seized that moment and created those rules?
Yeah, I mean, there was a. By the way, because FDR is my great hero in the book and in reality. I mean, this is the symbol of how someone who really wants to change society for the better can do it. Wasn't perfect. Made a deal with the devil, accepting the support of Southern segregationists, but it's hard to imagine what might have happened if he hadn't had that kind of leadership. What made it possible? There were roots. There was a progressive movement that had been building in the years before the New Deal, and that movement met opportunity, and it had the right leadership. So you were able to get this dramatic change. It wasn't automatic. Actually, this is something I've realized, going around talking about this book. I talk about it. It's a very optimistic book, which so optimistic that friends are asking if I'm feeling quite all right. I think there is the potential for a dramatic positive turn in America, but it does require leadership. If you look at the other men who were contending for the Democratic nomination in 1932, there's real reason to doubt that any of the others would have accomplished what FDR did. It didn't necessarily have to happen. We are now, we don't have a Great Depression, thankfully. We don't have a world war, although they might be working on that. We do have a sense of crisis for many middle-class Americans, a sense that this is not working. Enormous, and so the possibilities, we can enlarge on this, I'm sure we will, but the possibilities for change are once again very great. And I think so that this is it's an optimistic book with hopes that we can really change it.